Friends and family of our beloved Sid, we thank you for being here to pay your final respects to Sid today, and also to be here to give support to the many members of his family, extended family, who grieve at this hour. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binodesha yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahleni. Nafshi yeshovev, yancheni במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, דישנת ושמן ראשי. כוסי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, and I want for nothing else. God makes me lie down in green pastures. God leads me beside the still waters. God restores my soul. God guides me in straight paths for God's own name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death and the greatest darkness, I will fear no evil, for you are always with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me as they guide me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my foes, if he even had any, which is hard to imagine. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup runs over. Surely goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in God's house for all of eternity. We are going to hear today from a number of Sid's family who are sharing their thoughts and feelings and memories with us at this time. And first I call upon Renee.
My father was ordinary, and yet he was extraordinary. He was the classic unsung hero. He never sought the limelight. He never needed credit. He did what needed to be done. He worked hard and he played by the rules. He was modest to a fault. At a time when kindness seems to be in short supply, or even viewed as a weakness, my father was known to literally everyone as the kindest, sweetest man. Truly, there was no one who didn't like my father. But alongside that sweetness, he also had a sly wit, which I hope many of you got to see. He often delighted in clever wordplay with a mischievous grin. This is definitely, as they say, TMI, too much information. But last week, before he overcame a small bowel obstruction, he was listening to the treatment options very carefully with us. And he realized the potential seriousness. And when he did, he whispered to my sister, "So we are SOL." Right on brand, my father was self-deprecating. When he and my mom would come to Boston and take responsibility for driving Anna and Saul to school, he would inevitably sing the Kingston Trio song. I think it's called Charlie on the MBTA, or on the MTA. and I'm going to give it a try in his honor. Did he ever return? No, he never returned, and his fate is still unlearned. He may ride forever 'neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. He was a man who didn't need a map. He was really good with directions, and yet he's still saying that. Some of you know that I currently work in the field of aging. As I contemplated a few years ago what I wanted to devote the next chapter of my career to, I suddenly saw the through line. Dad selflessly cared for his parents and for several other aging family members, and eventually for my mom. So while he would wave off this notion, and he often did when I told him, he inspired me to do what I do today. Over the last few years, and even the last few days, I made a point to tell him, I am who I am because of you. Dad also sparked my passion for policy and politics. He was an avid supporter of democracy, taking me to the polling booth with him at a young age and always making sure we voted. He shared my dismay over the state of our country currently, and we regularly had conversations about national and world events. He followed the news, even to the end. Dad was loyal. He was always loyal to my mom. Many people said that when he moved to the summit, women would chase after him. A handsome, fit, kind-hearted widower who looked younger than his years. And perhaps they did. He certainly never mentioned it to me. But I do know that, for better or for worse, he never even opened himself to that. One of his very final acts was leaving my mother a message about where he was and letting her know he would be home soon. Little did we know, but he knew. Dad was a decent man. He was a true mensch. And my final words are for him. Pop, you were my hero. I miss you terribly, and I'll do my best to emulate your goodness and your kindness for the rest of my days. I love you.
Jill.
So Renee and I did not discuss our eulogies, but there's definitely some common threads, of course, because we shared this amazing father. But I did, when I was thinking this through, I said to myself, where do I even begin? And as Renee talked about, the condolence messages have been pouring in with one consistent message, and that's that Dad was the nicest, kindest, sweetest man. And he was all of those things. And yet, for us, and I think for many people who knew him, he was so much more. You may have read that in Dad's obituary that we fondly referred to him as the man of yes. And in thinking that through, I just wanted to make sure that we're clear that this moniker should not be confused with being a yes man, which is often defined as someone who's passive or lacking in character, which Dad was anything but. He exemplified character and responsibility. He demonstrated unfaltering commitment to everything he did. In his career as a pharmacist, in his role as a father and then grandfather, in his care for his parents, aunts, uncles, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and friends, as anyone needed anything. And he was absolutely devoted to our mom, as illness devastated her and sadly robbed them of a longer life together. Dad was the polar opposite of passive. He was active. he was determined. He was involved. He was involved here at Temple Beth David. Phil stopped me and said, he's been a member for so long. We joined Temple Beth David when I was in first grade. I'm quite a bit older than that now. He was a reassuring father. He instilled confidence. He got down on the floor playing with us as children, and there are a multitude of pictures of him lying on the floor, cuddling with us, taking photos, playing. And he listened. I always felt like he took everything that I said to heart. And one of my favorite stories is that when I was 5 and we were actually leaving my grandparents on Eminent Street, I have a very vivid memory of this, which is enhanced by, of course, the storytelling of it. But I was in the back seat, and we had just left the driveway, and I asked my father why he smoked. And this was in 1968. And I don't remember the content of the response, but as the story goes, Dad the very next day went to work, and he made a bet with his boss, his friend, his dear friend Bart. And they made a bet to see who could last longer without lighting up. And Dad never picked up a cigarette again. That was the end. He taught me how to ride a bike, walking, then running alongside me, holding the seat steady until he let go and let me cruise on my own. And that came back to me when my daughters were born, and I got together with a friend, and she said, our job is to raise them and then let them fly. And Dad did that. Dad did that for us. He taught me to drive patiently. And years later, when Fred and I were driving back from a wedding in Buffalo, and we hit a blizzard, and we're picking up Renee in Binghamton, and it was a horrible night, and my car ended up totaled at the end of the whole thing. It was Dad who said to me, you can't be afraid to get behind the wheel. You need to get behind the wheel again, and you can't be afraid to get back on the horse. That might surprise so many of you, because again, he had this very mild, but he was very strong in his beliefs. And then, when he and Mom became grandparents and took every opportunity possible to joyfully spend time with grandchildren, the man of yes fully emerged. He fully emerged. Want to come visit? Yes. Want to sing karaoke? Yes. Play Wii bowling? He and Mom with the computer and bowling? Yes. Want to go on a cruise with us? Yes. Ride the water slide? Up over the ocean? Yes. Want to go to Disney World with us? Yes. And he said it multiple times. Ride a roller coaster? Yes. Visit Hilton Head? Yes. Go to Alaska? Yes. And that trip was on the docket, unfortunately canceled in 2020, but he was going on a cruise to Alaska with us. Much as all of that described, you might think that such a nice man wouldn't have a competitive streak, but he did. A lot with himself, which was, doing things like Sudoku and crossword puzzles and jigsaw puzzles. But he also had a pretty big competitive streak with other people. During COVID, he became quite a big iPhone beer pong player with my kids and with Fred. It was pretty funny. He just loved a good challenge. Renee mentioned his mischievous sense of humor. He was mischievous, but he was never snarky. There was never like a mean part of this. And when he got a good laugh going, he just couldn't stop. It was often, spurred on by wacky TV shows like Night Court, 2.5 Men, which, by the way, in Dad's words, notably the pre-Ashton Kutcher days, because once he came on, it was not funny anymore. WKRP in Cincinnati. He had some favorite sayings, which we have to share a few of. He quoted from Mad Magazine, "What me worry?" Right? That was a constant thing. And smartphone dumbhead, which was a constant since he got his iPhone in 2019. And occasionally he had a zinger come out that was never mean, it was never malicious, but we'll tell you one of our favorites. When Fred and I were here looking at wedding venues back a long time ago, we went to a venue that was preparing for a lesbian wedding, and Dad turned to the caterer slash, event planner and said, "So what do they play? Here Comes the Brides?" And it wasn't, he was really just curious. With all that said, with all that activity in Dad's life, my daddy was a constant, calm ocean. He was consistent. He always made me feel like everything was going to be okay. He was inspiration embodied. He was resilient. He defied the odds time and time again over the past 2 weeks and over the past 2 years. When he passed away on Sunday morning, it was on his own terms. At the time of his choosing, which we are feeling more and more was really his decision. And it was his final act of agency, actively acknowledging and deciding that it was his time and leaving this earth to see Mom again. I will love and miss you forever, Daddy.
Stephen Feuerstein.
Uncle Sid. He was always Uncle Sid to us, so I'm here representing the Feuerstein branch. Jay and Sherry are here. Nina couldn't make it. Lori is no longer with us, and really here for my mom, Joan, who died on December 13th. So it's been a hard 2026. They were very, very close, stayed in constant touch with each other, always checking in on each other. The last time I think the last time I was physically with Uncle Sid was when Leonard and Pat Norrie invited them both to attend a bar mitzvah down in Chapel Hill, which is where I live now. And they came to visit. They were just so comfortable and loving with each other, and just had a great time, and really exuded the kind of feeling of family and love of family that I think dominated, really centered both of their lives. I won't repeat. Well, I can't repeat most of what you said, but I could repeat, of course, what we're going to hear over and over again. Nicest guy ever. Can't think of a better thing to say about a person than if there were more people like Uncle Sid, the world would be a better place. Every single person who's more like Uncle Sid would make the world a better place. Anything you can do individually to be more like Uncle Sid will make the world a better place. It doesn't get better than that. Just a wonderful, wonderful person. For me, from the outside, I think our families were very close. So Markus's and Feuerstein's. On our other side, Feuerstein's and Schuckman's. But we were always closest with the Markuses. It was always like kind of one extended family. Even though we didn't see you guys all that often. But whenever we did, it was like, we were never apart. Just really, really close. And one of my favorite things about Uncle Sid, actually, is that when I would come to visit in Emanon Street, our grandparents, I would stay in Uncle Sid's old room with all his little things that they kept there for years and years and years. I honestly don't remember a lot of the things that I saw there, but it was just so much fun. It was kind of a thrill to like sleep in his room growing up. So I don't have a lot of stories to tell. I was telling Renee that, because we weren't together all that much, but it was just a great uncle to have. Whenever we visited in Rochester, barbecues at the home, it was just such a wonderful time, and we will all miss him very, very much.
Elena and Vanessa.
Hi everyone. We are very thankful you are all here today to honor our Grandpa Sid and the abundant life he led.
At first, we sat down to collect our thoughts on our grandfather's life and legacy independently, but when we compared notes, there were unsurprisingly so many consistencies and through lines between our reflections.
First of all, serving others was second nature to him. For many, many years, Grandpa devoted his time to assisting at the Jewish home here in Rochester, driving for Meals on Wheels and being the go-to guy for relatives, friends, and strangers alike who were struggling. Those he supported often struggled with medical issues or, in the case of volunteer work, were simply less fortunate. But he was always somebody who called to check in, never missed a chance to share his well wishes on birthdays, wrote cards by hand even towards the end of his life, and spent quality time with his relatives he regarded as his closest friends, and the closest friends he regarded as his relatives. And because I know Grandpa would want me to, I want to take a moment to thank so many of our Rochester relatives who stepped in to be with my grandpa in times of celebration and hours of need. Thank you for continuing my grandpa's legacy of service. I see the greatest continuation of his legacy in my mom, who became my grandfather's primary caretaker, both in person and remotely, through all hours, especially for the past 2 years, and especially the past hard months. So thank you, Mama. Grandpa knew he was never alone as long as he had you and Aunt Renee, and he will always have you guys. And I've just spent some time talking about Grandpa Sid's devotion to supporting those he loved and those in need. But as a grandfather, he was especially devoted to having fun with us and making us believe we could be anything we wanted to be. As kids, we often took trips to the Strong National Museum of Play, where we'd pretend to be bakers, chess masters, grocery store cashiers, ticket sales representatives, literally the most random careers ever. And we dressed the part. And we can see it in photos now that Grandpa played along every time, taking it as seriously as we did, never laughing at us, just really acting as a customer or a client. And as we grew older, our gameplay turned into bananagrams, which he'd usually beat the rest of us at, and we have this fond memory of Vanessa and Saul playing with him at our house when he decided he wanted to make up words for bananagrams instead of using real words to make a crossword puzzle, and he would say, "Oh, that's an ointment that I use," or, the definition of this word is a country, next door to Kazakhstan. It was hilarious. And Vanessa has a photo of the words that he came up with. It was so funny. And as my mom mentioned before, he was really, really good at iPhone beer pong, which was particularly funny because Vanessa and I were quarantined in college at the time. So instead of playing, beer pong in a frat house, we were playing beer pong with our grandfather, who was in his 80s. And he really wordled every day without fail. He would say smartphone, dumb head, and he was really good at that phone. He never gave himself enough credit, but when he wordled and got a couple tries in 1 or 2 attempts, he'd text us lucky guess because he was so humble that he would never, amount it to his own intellect.
And the laughs, which we've talked about a bit, but time to elaborate. When Grandpa found something really funny, he laughed so hard he'd barely be able to make a sound, which would make the rest of us all crack up. Elena and I grew up thinking all grandfathers were like him, youthful in spirit, and simply put, always game. But not everyone has such great fortune. Grandpa Sid was meant to be a grandfather. In good times and bad, Grandpa Sid was always there with a kind twinkle in his eye, a witty wisecrack, and one-liners that will forever remain in my vocabulary. He was whip smart, beloved beyond his perception, and to put it simply, the best guy in the world. Grandpa Sid was also a man of many favorite things he always loved that we loved because he shared them with us. His favorite foods: Abbott's vanilla frozen custard, a single roast beef from Arby's with horsey sauce. A double would be, as he would say, too much food. Chicken, as long as it wasn't dry, and my grandma's mandarin orange jello. His favorite films: Casablanca and somehow A Christmas Story. His favorite musicians: while everybody I think knows, Grandpa Sid, while not a musician himself, found great joy in music, whether it was Simon and Garfunkel, John Denver, or even the Eastman School of Music pianists who visited his place for performances often, and he made a point to go every single time and tell us all about it. We've treasured the many scoops of ice cream, songs sung in the back seat of the car together, and many rewatches of Casablanca. Here's looking at you, Sid.
Our grandpa's meticulously kept walking journal continued up until the last year or so when he was physically struggling. And that's part of the reason why it's, I think, so hard for us to believe that he's gone. He defied the odds time and time again and just kept walking. Even, when he really wasn't able to, he wanted to walk. He was very stubborn about not wanting to use the walker when he had to. And as we go forward into this new chapter without Grandpa Sid walking the earth, Vanessa and I promise to put one foot in front of the other and do our best to honor him. We love you, Grandpa. We miss you already.
We love you and miss you so much.
Yes. Penina and Sol. My apologies.
Okay, this is The Gift by Mary Oliver. Be still, my soul, and steadfast. Earth and heaven both are still watching, though time is draining from the clock, and your walk that was confident and quick has become slow. So be slow if you must, but let the heart still play its true part. Love still as once you loved, deeply and without patience. Let God and the world know that you are grateful, that the gift has been given. So Mary Oliver has a way of writing very simple yet strikingly profound poetry. So I picked that poem because it spoke to how my Zedala was throughout my life up until his very last day. He was unflagging in who he was for as long as I've known him, as all of my family has spoke to. Deeply committed to his values, even through life's most difficult moments. Without fail, on every birthday, he would call to sing happy birthday, and if he couldn't reach us, he'd text us the lyrics or leave it on the voicemail. Without fail, in every Bananagrams game, he was my greatest rival. Never gave me an inch, okay? Without fail, he remained selflessly generous with his time and lovingly considerate of the people around him. I think as grandchildren, we have both the fortune and misfortune to know our grandparents towards the final chapters of their lives. But how lucky am I to have a Zadie who showed me how to find love and purpose in the way that one chooses to lead their life, and to keep that strong even as the years go by.
I think seeing Zadie on his final days, and it was then when I realized how truly huge of a presence he had everywhere he went. I think that a room without Zadie was not the same with him, or a room with Zadie was not really the same without him. Both work. It also took hindsight to realize how his gentle kindness impacted us. It was so, it was subtle, but it wasn't subtle at all. And the quiet humor and wit that we also mentioned somehow made everyone else around him laugh loudly. He laughed silently, but everyone else cracked up, and the room would be different. Based on the poem Penina mentioned, we feel so much gratitude spending the last days of his life with him. I'm grateful for realizing how, even though some rooms will not be the same without him, that's a testament to how beautiful his personality was, how impactful his kindness and wit was. I thought he was just so cool. he did everything with us, and that just had such an impact on me. And I think I will always remember his presence that way, in the way that we mentioned, in the way he was with us in the best moments of our lives, in the way he would dance with us at weddings and bar and bat mitzvahs, in the way he hopped in a bumper car with me at Seabreeze, taught me how to drive before my own father did. So, in hindsight, I'm even more grateful with the impact he had on my life.
It has been an honor to be with Sid, to spend time with him over the brief 8 or so years that we knew each other, whether at Shabbat morning services, which he attended almost, I would say, whenever he could. Also, it's been an honor to be with him in more recent times when his health prevented him from joining us here, and when he and I might sit together at the Jewish home. And then this week, I sat with you, with Renee and Jill and Fred in my office, as we reflected on the life that Sid lived, and as we reflected on the Sid whom we've lost. After recounting many beautiful, loving, funny memories of their father, with not a single harsh word to say about him, Renee closed the conversation with a single word. She said, humility. That's it. Humility. The word that captures all of him. We learn from the prophet Micah, you have been told, O mortal, what is good and what God requires of you, only to do justice and to love goodness and to walk modestly with your God. Then will your name achieve wisdom. So in a word, humility. Someone who taught us not only by the modesty of his speech, but also by his actions, what it means to walk modestly with God and to live humbly. Never one to say anything bad about someone else, nor to boast about his own achievements. It's not that he was unaware of the world around him. You know, sometimes we or I might look at someone who is quiet by nature, possibly even a bit reserved, and you pause and you wonder, are they seeing what I'm seeing? Are they taking in what I am? Are they missing something? But Sid took it all in, reflexively choosing, preferring to think the best of someone and to believe only in the good that they're capable of. And while he was never a person of extravagant desires, he most definitely knew what it was to have a deep sense of pride in his heart. Pride in his work, which was so central to his identity. Pride in his country as a military veteran. Pride in the home he built. Pride in his community, which, as we at Temple Beth David know, that he supported lovingly by doing the most important thing that one can do for a community, which is to show up. I forgot exactly who it was and what the percentage was. It's either 80% or 90% with inflation and tariffs. I don't know. So 80% of success is showing up. Well, Sid showed up. In the book of Genesis, when God calls to Abraham, Abraham replies, Hineni, which literally means, here I am. Our sages teach us that the hidden meaning, the deeper meaning of here I am, is that this is the answer of the pious. It is an expression of humility and of readiness to be there to serve others. And so, most important, his pride for his family truly was the cup that overflowed. His wife Lois, his daughters Jill and Renee, pride in their family, his siblings, cousins, many nieces, nephews, grandnephews, so many of whom are descendants and extensions of what I understand was basically the Markus family compound around Norton Street, which through the years would house up to 4 generations of Marcuses. In fact, one might say that this large extended family living at relatively close quarters with all the kids playing together and growing up together kind of made the Marcuses like the Kennedys of Irondequoit. To grow old together with cousins who are one's best friends is a blessing. And so when faces on that family photograph begin to disappear from our midst as they fade into another realm, it hurts. It's tremendously painful because Sid showed up for all of them, taking care of them, loving them, playing with them, looking after his parents and Lois and others when their health weakened, always ready to say, Hineni, here I am, ready to be there for you. In the world in which we live, people who change the world are assumed to have loud voices. But that, my friends, is only partly true, because it's an assumption that fails to include the likes of Sid, who changed the world by virtue of the love and the true goodness that he put into it. Our Jewish tradition teaches us that one of the greatest ways we can remember our loved ones after we have lost them is to emulate the good deeds after they're gone, to do good deeds in their place because they're no longer here to do them themselves, to do good deeds in their memory because hopefully, ideally, this is what they taught us to do. And as we carry Sid in our hearts from this moment forward for the rest of our own days, our mission becomes to forever be conscious of seeking ways to change the world. Whether loudly, whether quietly, that's up to you. But to do it in the spirit that Sid did, with humility and love and a sense of showing up and being there. Yehi Zichro Baruch, may the memory of our beloved Sid Markus Shlomo Zalman ben Daniel V'Malka be a blessing to all of us for the rest of our days. May we carry him with us wherever we may go. We will recite one more psalm, which is traditional to recite at a Jewish funeral service, and after that we will rise for the memorial prayer and the Kaddish. After the Kaddish, the mourner's Kaddish, we will leave here and proceed to the cemetery, to Stone Road Cemetery. שיר למעלות אשא עיני אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. עזרי מעם אדוני עושה שמיים וארץ. אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך. הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יקקה, וירח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם. A song of ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. Adonai will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm and guard your life. Adonai guards your going and your coming, now and forever. Please rise. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hametzeh menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת שלמה זלמן בן דניאל ומלכה שלח לעולמו. בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו. ונאמר יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen. We ask pallbearers to please step forward